Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Moms Like Me, sponsored by Support Now. I am so excited to be back. I'm coming off a Thanksgiving break. I know many of you are also recovering from a week long of kids and fun and all the chaos that ensues. But today, I'm so excited to be joined by another wonderful mom, wife, sports reporter, Emily Reppert, who's going to be sharing a little bit more about her story related to a NICU experience. So, Emily, welcome. And first, I'd love for you just to share a little bit more about you and about your story.
Sure. Well, I am a mom of two. My second baby was born premature. She was 33 weeks, and it was just an experience that I was not at all anticipating. I work for the New York Mets, so I was in the middle of my season. I kind of planned. We tried to plan our birth for when the season was over. So I was pregnant all summer. And, everyone's like, when are you going to pop? When are you going to have this baby? And I was like, I got time. And then, I did it.
As they say, you have a plan, God laughs. So it was not what you expected. And it sounds like with your first, everything was smooth, or was it very, very different from your first experience?
Well, so she was early. My first was 3 weeks early. And again, like it was my first baby. So I think at like 37 weeks when I started having these contractions, I was like in denial. Like that babies can come early, but I guess I just didn't think that she would be early or that early. So with my second, I did kind of feel like she would probably be early, but I didn't expect that early. And I did have, at 20 weeks at my scan, my cervix was short and I was put on progesterone. So getting my cervix checked. But after a couple weeks of that, they're like, it's stable. We were not really concerned. I think they kind of just like, I don't know if they minimized the situation, but they didn't seem as concerned about it. So I didn't seem as concerned about it. So in my head, I'm like, she probably will come early. But I mean, when I started having contractions at 33 weeks, I was like, there's no way this is happening.
Wow. So yeah, I would love for you to share more about that. So 33 weeks, were you working? Were you at home? Kind of tell us a little bit more, to the extent that you're comfortable, of course, with like how you knew and kind of honestly even the emotions that set in while that was happening, because it sounds frightening and not your expectations.
Yeah. So the day before I had my 33-week appointment, and even my husband was asking like the OB, our first baby was born in New Jersey. We're having this baby in New York. So new doctor, new hospital, where are we going? What's the protocol for when she goes in labor? Like, we'll go over that at 35 weeks. And my husband's like, well, our first baby came early. Like, maybe we should cover this now. And she, again, was not concerned about it. So then the next day I had work and I got home from work and I felt a contraction, or what I thought was a contraction. I was like, there's no way. And we did bedtime and I was feeling them as I was putting my daughter to bed. And then after that, I was like, I should probably start counting, like seeing how far apart these are. And I remember with my first daughter, I also had contractions for like a whole day. They were maybe like 7 minutes apart and I kind of just like played them off. I feel like I can tolerate a lot of pain. And again, I really didn't think I was going into labor. So with her, I was like, I'm going to try to do the same thing, see if I can sleep through it. If it's not that bad, I'll be able to sleep. And I laid in bed and I started tracking them. And some of them were like 2 minutes apart. And I was like, I can't sleep. And my husband was asleep. I'm like, I need to call the hospital, or I need to call the doctor's office. So I talked to the midwife that was on call. And she was like, you need to come. And of course, we had, an almost 2-year-old, and we were living in the city. We really didn't have family around. So I took an Uber to the hospital by myself.
Wow.
Just even that experience, it was just like, not at all what you expect. And I remember my Uber driver saying something like, oh, are you okay? And I was like, I think I'm in labor. And he was like, oh, well, good luck. Or feel better, or something like that. I was like, okay.
Well, Emily, do you remember the feeling that you had? Was it sad? Was it fear? Was it anger? Like what was racing through your head?
I think it was fear. At first, it was fear. I was so scared. Also, I knew that she was breech. Well, we didn't know the sex of the baby. We waited for both of our babies, but I knew that the baby was breech. So I'm 33 weeks, my baby is breech, and I'm by myself. I was terrified. and sad and terrified. So get to the hospital, triage. They're trying to figure out if I'm in labor. I think when they finally checked my cervix, they're like, "Yeah, you're in labor." And again, she was breech, and I was like, "I'm going to have a C-section by myself, and to a premature baby, that's probably going to be, taken away." So I was really scared. I think the midwife there, she knew how scared I was, and my husband was at home trying to find coverage for our daughter. So his parents were able to drive up. Our babysitter came. His parents drove up, so he was able to get to the hospital. But in the meantime, I think they really knew that I really didn't want to have a C-section. And the midwife was like, "I can't even obviously perform this C-section, but if your husband doesn't make it, I will be in there and I will hold your hand." And I'll never forget her saying that, just like that little bit of comfort during that time. So then the OB on call came. It wasn't the doctor that I had been seeing, but someone else in her practice showed up, and she was also great. She was like, "Listen, we'll try to do an EVC. We'll try to turn her." And I was like, "Oh my God, are you serious? Let's do it, So I think my husband arrived. They took me into the operating room. They had to prep me for a C-section in case it didn't work. Then they had to go ahead with the C-section. And I mean, that was I don't really remember much. It was this out of body experience. I just remember being on the operating table and all of these doctors on top of me, turning my stomach. And I remember someone at one point was like, can we let go yet?" She was like, "Not yet, not yet. I just want to make sure that she's not going to move. The baby's not going to move." So it was successful, which was
Wow.
amazing. I am so grateful for that, that they were able to do that and at least take away one of, my fears. I mean, it was still,
Was that painful?
I don't really remember it. I really don't. And I think because I was already prepped for C-section with epidural, or I don't even know what they give you for C-section. So I was really out of it. But then on the other hand, after that procedure and they took me back to a delivery room, I got violently ill. And I don't know if it was from the medicine, from just the stress, the anxiety, everything, but I just got really nauseous and I was just vomiting for hours straight. And I remember them trying to give me medication to help with the nausea, and nothing was working. It just wasn't working. So those, I don't know, 6 hours were a blur. And then the doctor coming in and saying, "It's time to push." And I'm physically sick. I gave birth, and when you have a premature baby, I don't even think I was very out of it, but I don't think I saw her at all. I think, they put her right there in the incubator, the NICU. Doctors and nurses are there. So she was gone. I mean, I remember asking because I didn't know the sex. So I said, "What is it?" They're like, it's a girl. And then just like that, she was gone. And I was still really sick. My husband went to the NICU and was able to see her and take some pictures. So that was the first time, I saw her, and I wasn't able to visit because of that. So it was probably about 12 hours later that I was finally able to go in and see her. And I remember just losing it. I mean, I was obviously so happy, but nothing prepares you to especially having a baby. I had a baby. I was able to hold her right away and have that experience, and then not having it with her was that was hard.
Yeah. Yeah. And she was probably so little. How big was she?
She was actually, I mean, she was 4 pounds, 15 ounces. So because she was actually a pretty good size, which I'm sure helped her journey, but just, hooked up. She had a CPAP, IV, just hooked up to everything. And I just didn't even not that I knew what she looked like, but it's you just don't recognize this.
Well, and it's so unnatural to see a baby, or really anyone, but especially a less than 1 day old baby in that state. It's jarring.
Yeah.
It's not the way it's supposed to be. And so I've learned this through talking to moms like you. It's just the managing the expectations versus the reality of it. that in and of itself can create a lot of emotion and trauma, even if the prognosis for the baby is good.
Yeah.
You're sitting in your own grief of, this isn't how I expected it to go. This isn't how I expected to look at her for the first time.
I was so happy. I was obviously grateful that I had her. She was okay. I was never really concerned when she was in the NICU. I knew she just needed a little more time to get stronger, but I still do. I grieve that experience that I didn't get to have with her. And even my first baby, she was born during COVID. So things were different. And I pushed her. I was wearing a mask, when I gave birth. It was a much better experience, but it was still scary for me. And then hoping the second time around would be different, or at least the same, and thinking like I wasn't able to have that same experience with her and the birth experience that I wanted. And it was all just, it was a lot.
So how long was she in the NICU for?
14 days.
14 days. So you went home. Tell us about that.
So I stayed 2 nights after that. They wanted me to stay. And my husband, unfortunately, had to go home to be with our toddler. So I was there by myself. And even that, when you're in the hospital and you hear people in their rooms with their babies. And I was in New York. So at one point they put somebody like on the other curtain.
Yeah.
And like, I can't do this. Like I need to be in my own room. Like this is triggering to me to hear this baby next to me. So then I went home, and it just so happened that I think we had our babysitter on call, or our babysitter was scheduled to work because I was scheduled to work. So we did have help for a couple hours every day. So we kind of just utilized her so we could both go to the NICU to see Ophelia. It was tough. I mean, it was just like a very lonely experience and a lonely time. I mean, my husband would go early in the morning before work. Then I would go when he got home. Yeah, I know, it was just tough. It was tough. I was trying to spend as much time as I could with my toddler, but also at the NICU. And even now, I feel guilt. So, like I didn't spend enough time there.
Yeah.
But
It's like a no-win situation where either way you're feeling guilty. And by the way, I think that, had you had a healthy, normal pregnancy, that guilt is always there. As moms, we feel that tension between the status quo and the newness. And to your point, it's so much more intense when you truly feel like both need you in this moment.
Yeah.
And I would imagine it was also hard, again, to not have the reunion of your daughters, or the introduction of your daughters in a way that perhaps you envisioned it.
Right, exactly. I mean, she was too young to really understand, when I came home and I didn't have the belly anymore, like she didn't get what was going on. But it also, like, you're walking around, you're still like, she started a twos program that same week. So I got home and just right back in the swing of things. I was taking her to school, and we had like a long phase in, so I had to stay with her every day. And I'm trying to get to know these, new parents, and no one knows that I just gave birth a week ago and my baby's in the NICU, and it's just like this really weird state to be in, where people don't know what you're going through. And I think I remember at one point I think the elevator was out and we had to walk up 6 flights of steps. And my daughter like needed help, and I was carrying her. And I think I said like, I shouldn't even be lifting her. And someone asked why, and I was like, I just had a baby. And they're like, what? Like, no one knew. And then the trauma dump of like everything that happened, it all just like came out because I was holding on to all of that.
So tell me a little bit about the support, again, in situations like this where you certainly were not anticipating giving birth at 33 weeks. You were not anticipating having and balancing a baby in the NICU and a toddler at home. What were the things that you needed? What were the things that you got?
I think support looked different than what I expected. And then again, I didn't really know what to expect because I had never dealt with this before. But, we had family members check in, ask how everything was doing. And then I also had some family members that didn't say anything at all. I don't fault them because I know what it's like. If you don't know what someone's going through, it's hard to know how to respond or what to say. And then sometimes you end up saying nothing at all and making it worse. But, that was hard, like having people not check in. And my husband's very good at he was keeping people updated, and he keeps things light and tries to be positive, which it was positive. She was progressing. Everything was going well, but that doesn't mean that we weren't hurting. Like I was mad. I was sad. I was mad. I was all the feelings. And I think like I just was seeking like validation. I just wanted to be able to like tell my story to someone and someone say like, I'm really sorry that you're going through this. This must be really hard. And instead, you get hit with, well, at least she's okay. And at least, at least you get to spend more time with your toddler. I'm like, no, I'm splitting my time now. Like, that's not the case. And even if that is the case, like I can still feel upset for my situation and what happened. And I feel like, that's what helps you start to heal. Like, and honestly, I turned a lot to like Instagram pages of people that have gone through similar things. And I think that helped me feel better about the situation, or at least it was someone that I could relate to. I had a few friends that also had babies in the NICU, and, them reaching out to me just saying like, hey, like, I know what you're going through. I think that I found a lot of comfort in that. Yeah, those 2 weeks, like I just look back at it and I'm like, it was just such a sad time. And it's terrible to say that because I had a newborn, but also at the same time, like I was upset.
Have you ever reconciled that with them?
No, I haven't. And, I feel like I've posted more about it now, like on my face or on my Instagram, kind of as like my own therapy and healing and thinking maybe someone will say something. But yeah, no.
And I understand that because in some ways you're trying to move past it and you've found a way, albeit not the way you expected, to kind of, to your point, to find that outlet. I'm also curious though, where it sounds like the support that you described kind of being disappointed in, and I think it's important to label that, was truly the words of affirmation, the verbal, I see you. I may not understand exactly what's going on, but I'm here for you in all the ways that I possibly can. Was there also tactical things that you needed help with? Things around the house that you were hoping that someone would step up with, or, around, with a pet? What were some of the other support kind of levels or areas where people could have stepped up?
Right. Well, obviously, help with our daughter, watching her so we could go to the NICU. And again, like I said, I feel like my husband was really good at, we have our sitter already on call, so we're covered for this week. And both of our families are, hour and a half, 2 hours away. So it's not like anyone's super close, but my dad did come up. My dad tried to help the best that he could. And we maybe butted heads a little bit about like what I needed versus what
He could give.
wanted to give. And I was, I just had a baby. Like I was not emotionally, mentally in a good state. But I'm grateful for his help, trying to help. But just like little things. I wish that we always joke like we're big door dashers, so like we'll just order food. I didn't necessarily need someone to like make us a meal, but send me a coffee in the morning. Like just something to like brighten my day, or know that like, hey, I'm thinking of you, like hang in there.
You were seeking to be seen. You just wanted people to acknowledge the moment that you were in, and the lack of even a gift card in this case made you feel like no one appreciated the moment that you were struggling through.
Yeah, exactly.
And I do think what you talk about is so important because it is so hard postpartum. We as moms, we struggle because we want support. We want people to love on us. We want to feel seen. And we're emotional and we're hormonal and we're exhausted. Your body just went through extreme trauma, in your case, probably more so than the average, given just all that you had to endure before you started pushing. And so it's a tricky balance for people to support while also giving space.
Exactly. And I had someone, a family member, say that they were going to come, and then I think the day of said like, hey, I can't come, and never really gave an explanation. And I think part of it was they wanted to maybe come and stay a while, and I didn't want that. I couldn't have that, and they weren't able to help on our terms. They wanted to help on their terms, and when they didn't get that, they just totally, backed out. And I think that's an important thing to realize and to understand. Like, listen, you have to do things on other people's terms sometimes. And I couldn't have people in my house for 2 weeks, like nonstop. Like, I was in a really bad spot, and I don't think having company would have necessarily helped.
When you want to support someone, you're supporting them for that person and not for yourself. And I think naturally we have a tendency to do things that make us feel like we've checked the box on support, when in reality, we, the supporter, have very little to do with it. And so I think that is something we see very, very often. And I think there's an opportunity to get better at, like, what are the things this person is truly asking for?
Right. Am I doing it for me, or am I doing it for them?
And Emily, I'm curious, like, in your experience, having gone through this, how has this shaped the way that you support others? It sounds like this has been a very clarifying experience for you. Again, all things considered, still very, very traumatic. And I'm curious, how has this helped you in opportunities to love on the people you support?
Yeah, I feel like I'm so much more aware of situations. I've had a few friends since then have premature babies, even people that, I maybe didn't know that well. And like, I'll send a message like, just, hey, I know what you're going through. Like, if you ever need someone to talk to, because like I said, a couple of those people that I did talk to, some were friends, some were just acquaintances, but just having them reach out and say, like, I know what you're going through meant a lot to me. So I always try to do that. And I feel like I could be better at saying, how could I support you? Because sometimes it's like, I'll do what I would have wanted for someone, and that may not be what they want. So I think we could all be better at, hey, what's good for you? But yeah, I just always try to reach out to people when I see that they're going through a tough time. And it is still hard. Like, I've had people that have gone through really hard things, and you don't know what to say, and you don't know what to do. And then I feel guilt because then I didn't do anything at all. And how could I have been a better help? And that's why I do think support now is so great, because you can help the way that they need help. And I think that alleviates a lot of that kind of like awkward area of, what do I do? I don't know what to do now. I didn't do anything.
Yeah. No, absolutely. That's the spirit of what we are trying to really allow supporters and families to come together in a way that doesn't feel awkward and difficult. And I think one of the key points that you've said today that I just think is so important to say and say again, which is, do something. And I think we live in such a digital world where there are so many touch points that we can have as supporters that might not be the perfect thing, but it's better than nothing. A DoorDash gift card, a Starbucks gift card. There are things that supporters can do to acknowledge that I know that you're going through something very difficult, and maybe I'm not in a position to help you in ways beyond that.
Mm-hmm.
And it sounds like for you, that's really what you were seeking. You were seeking for people to recognize the hard time that you were in. And even if that wasn't the right gift card, it sounds like for you, just really the attempt,
Mm-hmm.
the intention would have meant more than maybe not getting it perfectly correct.
I think if we would have asked for more help, we probably would have received it. But again, we're not. I feel like my husband was really good at, like, she's doing well, everything's great, like not asking for it and kind of downplaying or minimizing the situation. And I'm not really the type of person to ask for help. But if people would have said, what can we do? Like, I don't know. It's a tricky situation.
It is a tricky situation, and it's an important situation. And that's why conversations like this are so important. We live in a very siloed world where we've forgotten, generally speaking, that there are a lot of people going through major life moments all the time. And I think that one of the things that's so significant around the story that you tell is that the supporting others can be as simple as the little things. It also can be as simple as extending your hand to say, I want to do something. I don't know what that looks like. And when you might figure out what that might look like, or when you might figure out if you can get comfortable with that in and of itself changes the way we support people, especially postpartum. I mean, Emily, what you're saying I think is so true for so many moms. We struggle so intensely postpartum because we've just gone through such trauma, and we're trying to tell people, like, did you just see what I just did? Like, you're trying to explain that to people. And because these things are so, quote, routine, we've forgotten that it's actually so incredible what you just did.
I've heard the quote, like, you'll never forget how you were treated during pregnancy and postpartum. And I feel like that, like, really resonates with me, all throughout your pregnancy. How's the baby? How are you feeling? And then you give birth and it's like crickets. Check on the baby maybe, but no one really checks on mom.
That fourth trimester, it's tricky. It's tricky. And again, you're right. We all flock to the baby, pregnancy. That's what's exciting to people. And then everything after that just becomes standard, mundane. Well, Emily, I again want to say thank you for being so honest and open around your experience. I think it is so important. And I'm so glad that everything from a health point of view ended up okay of course, for you and your daughter. And I think it's also important to say that just because a baby comes home healthy doesn't mean that a family isn't still going through tough times. And you can't always see it because, like you mentioned today, so much of it is how you're actually feeling mentally, spiritually, not necessarily physically, although that can certainly be a part of it. For those that want to follow you and see more of your family, can you tell us where best ways to find you?
Yeah, on Instagram, I'm Emily_Reppert. But yeah, I've been trying to just share more of like my daily life right now and what it's like with two kids. She just turned 2, Ophelia, and I feel like I'm finally kind of coming out of that postpartum fog. And I'm still obviously overwhelmed, but I feel a little less overwhelmed every day, and at the point now where I feel like, I can share a little bit and hopefully someone can relate to it because, those years were very lonely. I just felt so lonely in like early motherhood, and hopefully, I can help someone feel less lonely.
Well, thank you for doing what you do. For those that are listening that know someone like an Emily, someone who has maybe a high-risk pregnancy, a baby in the NICU, or really any major life moment, whether that be cancer, a house fire, loss, please consider Support Now as your tool to rally support from those around you. That can be money, that can be meals, that can be things around the house like pet care, child care, prayer, and more. It's completely free. Families keep more of the money. And we really are striving to kind of break the barriers that we've put up as a society around how we support people, because there is a better way. And our goal, our mission is to bring communities together in a way that is empathetic and compassionate towards the goal of making some of these major life moments just a little bit easier, just a little less overwhelming. So thank you, Emily. I look forward to continuing to follow you on Instagram. I hope others do as well, and look forward to more conversations.
Thanks so much.